everyone to please take a seat. Hello. Thank you. And I'm going to start off by doing some business. Tonight's community meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home Use Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on May 21st, 2024, and was posted on Borough Hall website at www.hbborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South 5th Avenue, Highland Park, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. First, I want to thank you all for coming out to tonight's meeting. You have patiently waited for a long time for this to happen. Last year when I was running, I said redevelopment, economic development was one of our major focus because we have to do something with our downtown. And I promised that we were going to have this meeting. Well, the long-awaited meeting is happening tonight. And I look forward to your comments on the concept plans, and constructive criticism is always welcome. But before I begin, I'll take a moment to acknowledge the team on this project. I'm going to acknowledge my fellow council members. Council member Tara Canavera, Council member Phil George, Council member Matt Hale, our council president Matt Hirsch, Council member Stephanie Kim Chohan, and Council member Jason Postelnick. I also want to acknowledge our professionals, Terry Jover, Borough Administrator and Economic Development Director, our planner, Chris Costanza and Jim Constantine, Joseph Bauman, Special Redevelopment Attorney, and of course, our staff, Janet Molina from the Community Center, Harry Glazer, our Public Information Committee, Dennis Jakina, our cameraman, which tonight would not be possible if we didn't have him, so we can share this video at home to you later. With that said, we're going to have a tight close at 9. But before we close, we're going to do a 15 minutes overview. And hopefully you would have submitted all your questionnaires and you would have written them out on this that we take time for you to put together. So hopefully we'll get a lot of good comments tonight, a lot of good takeaways. But I am going to introduce you to the person, Councilmember Hale, who's in charge of economic development. He's the chair of our Economic Development Committee. Councilmember Hale?
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me? First of all, I want to say the mayor welcomed everybody, but really tonight is an opportunity to say thank you to the mayor as well for not only fulfilling her campaign promise, but for making economic development and revitalization sort of fundamental to what we do. And that's something that I think the council shares very, very, very strongly. So all of the council members that she mentioned, all the professional staff, there was a lot of work that went into this. So I just want to make sure that we thank all of our folks, Terry and Jim and Chris and all of our staff members, all of our council members, Matt Hirsch, Phil George, Tara Canavera, Stephanie Kim Chohan, and Jason Postelnick. All really have put a great deal of work into this, so I wanted to say thank you to all of them. And of course, Joe Bauman, who I have to say thank you to the lawyer. That's always important. But I also wanted to say thank you very much to all of you. The fact that we have a turnout like this tonight is really impressive. It means that you care deeply about Highland Park. You care deeply about what's next for Highland Park. And I really appreciate not just the fact that you're here tonight, but we've been doing redevelopment for a very, very long time. Back in 2005, there was a redevelopment plan that had meetings just like this, right? We've had meetings, hundreds of meetings over the last 20 years to try and do some redevelopment in downtown. And it's been a long road, right? But every time that we go out and do redevelopment, we get a lot of really wonderful comments and feedback from all of you. The projects have changed over time because of the feedback that we've gotten over the last couple of years for this particular one. And that's really, really a testimony, I think, to how much people care about Highland Park and want the best for Highland Park. So I think that's really, really an important thing. So thank you to everybody who's here. Thank you to everybody who has participated in the past, and thank you very much to everybody who is going to participate in the future. So please give yourself a round of applause. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry in a little bit, but I just wanted to sort of set the stage in a couple of ways. For all of you who were involved when we were talking about the redevelopment process, the first step is sort of to come up with an idea, a redevelopment plan, which I liken to a picture frame. It's a frame that outlines what could be there, and in the middle is a blank canvas. There's absolutely nothing in the blank canvas. Tonight is where we're starting to fill in what's in the canvas within the frame. So the pictures that you're seeing in the back, the discussions that we're going to have tonight, really are our first attempt to take all the feedback that we've gotten over the last several years and put them into something, into a plan, put them into a step forward, right? And so what we're going to see tonight is our initial renderings of a proposal for Tract C. You're going to see drawings tonight in the back. We're going to talk tonight about housing. We're going to talk about parking lots. We're going to have discussions about the farmers market lots. We're going to talk about public covered porches for outdoor movies, walkway, cut-throughs, a whole variety of things that we're going to touch on tonight. And all I ask is that as we're doing this, to take an honest look at the pictures that you see, take an honest look at what you're seeing and the pictures that we're trying to paint, and just to listen with an open mind, without any preconceived ideas about whether this is going to be the savior or the death of Highland Park. Look at this, see what you think, ask us questions, look at these drawings, and let's have some conversations. Let's have some discussions about what comes next. I wanted to really quickly point out a couple things. One thing that's really, really important. You are likely to see some demolition going on Raritan Avenue, the house that was burnt, right? I want to be very, very clear. That does not mean any of this is starting tomorrow, right? None of this is starting that quickly. That demolition just needs to get done. And that's part of the point, is that we are still in the middle of this process. We have a long way to go before we get to the end. We are not starting construction tomorrow. Before any shovel hits the ground, there are many, many more chances for us to hear from you. Before a shovel hits the ground, we're going to go back through the council, back through the redevelopment agency, back through the planning board. We're going to have hearings, renderings, agreements, amendments to agreements, redevelopments, all of those different things. So there's a long process that we're ahead of. Tonight, what our attempt to do is to try and show the first important big step of that. All of these are going to be deeply informed with your input and comments along the way. Tonight is a huge and a hugely important step in this process, but again, we have a ways to go. It's a long journey, and we'll get there. So let's start. As I said, I'm going to turn it over to Terry in a second. She's going to spend some time talking about the new development of Tract C, which is the farmers market lot in the context of the farmers market. She's going to talk about where we're going to park and how that process is going to move forward. Terry is going to turn it over then to Garden Homes and Brett Tansman, our Tract C conditional redeveloper. Brett, along with his colleague Avelino, are going to show you drawings and sketches for the proposal on Tract C. Then we're going to take a break, and we're going to go back to the pictures in the back. You may have noticed earlier that there are 3 stations in the back. One is where the concept drawings for the development is. Another one is about what the public spaces and the open spaces are. That's a second one. And the third one is about parking. So we'll have council members, we'll have staff members, all of them will be there to try and answer as best we can your questions, your thoughts, your considerations at each of those areas. So this is an attempt for us to have a conversation about what you're seeing in front of you for the first time. We may not have all the answers, and I wanted to point that out. If we don't, write them down. We'll find the answers for you. We will work together to come up with the best answers for this. As the mayor said, as we conclude, we will have an open public comment period where you can come and give comments. That'll last about 15 minutes at the end. That should start about 8:45, okay? So those are sort of the housekeeping issues, the process issues, and the hope that we can have some good conversations tonight about the next step for revitalizing our downtown. And with that, I think I am going to turn it over to Terry, who will walk us through the next step. Thank you, Terry.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Really nice to see a full room. You put this together and you don't know if anybody's coming, so it's really great. I would like to mention we have some chairs over here towards the front on the left. It's not rude if you want to come up and take a seat, because I see we got some folks standing in the back. Whatever's comfortable. So just want to frame out what I'll be talking about a little bit. So, and then when I'm done, you'll hear all about the development project from our team with Garden Homes, Brett and Evelina, as Matt said. But essentially, I want to review.
A little louder, please.
Okay, sorry about that. How's that? Okay. See if I can. Alrighty. I need to kind of cheat by looking at the screen at the same time. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the history of redevelopment. I'm not going to belabor it. We're going to discuss how we got to Garden Homes and this partnership that we've started. We're going to talk about the expansion of what we originally started out with Tract C, moving into kind of the elephant in the room. What about South 3rd? What about the pedestrian plaza? What about the farmers market? And so I hope that at least I can paint that picture of kind of where we think we're headed. We don't have it all figured out, as Councilmember Hale mentioned. But we do think we have a good way forward with your help. And then you'll get to hear all about the project itself. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break out, as Matt said, let you look at those pictures a little more. We'll also have some display copies at the various round tables that you can look at, and then hopefully reconvene for kind of some final comments and thoughts. As Councilmember Hale mentioned, yeah, we did start. I actually started up my list in 2003 with the master plan that was done, a brand new full master plan where economic development, redevelopment were all goals and strategies that were articulated to generate economic development in the borough. And following that, in 2005, there were charrettes in this space, I believe, talking about the redevelopment of Raritan Avenue, identifying different blocks and lots for inclusion. An area in need of redevelopment study was done at that time, as well as the adoption of the Highland Park Downtown Redevelopment Plan. So I'm sure a lot of you have some memories of that and are familiar. So we've been talking about this space, and Tract C is a prominent spot in that 2005 plan as well. The 2010 Master Plan Re-Exam Report references redevelopment and encourages the activities around it. And in 2016, prior to my arrival at the borough, we took steps to declare the entire municipality as areas in need of redevelopment, rehabilitation, which allows us to do redevelopment plans in various places throughout the town as needed. It gives us a little more tools in a toolbox, so to speak. In 2019, we adopted the master plan reexamination report. We worked with our planners, Jim and Chris, who are here tonight and will be manning one of the tables later, to do that. And we had several community meetings and we did some surveys around that. And in the land use element, we focused on several important corridors, not the least of which was Raritan Avenue and the need to revitalize. And then most recently, after a series of community meetings, and some of them were on Zoom because we were right in the middle of the pandemic, we went into our planning and then ultimately adopted the 2021 Downtown Redevelopment Plan for Tracts A to D, which is Tract C is what we're here tonight to focus on, but I wanted to present the bigger context for you. The common thread throughout all of these is a desire to revitalize, add vitality downtown. What I would say a major priority of the 2021 plan was adding people downtown, getting more folks who want to live, work, and shop right on Raritan Avenue to give the shot in the arm to the local businesses that need more traffic, to give reinvestment where it's needed. And as you can see in the middle, you can see where A, B, C, and D are from that 2021 plan. So how did we find Garden Homes? Well, we did a request for proposals. We solicited for the acquisition and redevelopment of tracts A, C, and D within the downtown redevelopment area. And so we did that. We issued it on December 10th of 2021, and we gave a lot of time because we knew this was a complicated set of goals and ambitions that we had for these 4 areas. Or in this case, the RFP was for 3 of the 4. And the responses came back in on May 6th. And we had an internal review committee, the professional staff, the mayor at the time, Gilbert Mittler, and our council member Hale, all got through all the proposals and interviewed every candidate that came in. We were very impressed with what Garden Homes put together. They came in with a focus on Tract C alone. And one of the things they did really well was not only hit all the major points that we wanted to see get accomplished in the redevelopment plan, but they'd also already put some skin in the game. They had already started doing some acquisitions around the project area, our lots, which are the parking lot and the Main Street building, for those of you who are familiar with that. Which we had envisioned as a possibility and even articulated that in the RFP that went out. You just had to show you had control or had been negotiating with the property owners in order to bring that to us. So that was encouraging because it also allowed for a better project, one that was a little more complete, and so that we really liked. And lastly, Garden Homes was a really great partner to work with on the redevelopment of the Frederick property on Walter and River Road. If you're not familiar with it, I suggest you go look at it. It was a pleasure working with them, and so those things kind of all together, we decided this was a good match, and the review committee made the recommendation to the governing body that we move forward. I'm just speaking about Tract C right now, with Garden Homes on Tract C. We ultimately did find a conditional developer for Tract A, but that's for another meeting. So on August 2nd, 2022, we began our work. And what you're seeing around the room here in these images is one of the kind of first major outputs from all of our efforts together. So I mentioned they had come to us with additional lots in mind. And so some of you who follow this a little more closely may be aware, but not everybody will. We recently went about a study to see about the inclusion of these additional lots, and in this image, let me see if I can make a point over, we're talking about the ones in yellow, because in the center, in the crosshatch, those are the properties that we designated as Tract C in the redevelopment plan. In the grayed out areas in between, and on the other side, were all properties that were already included as an area in need of redevelopment and included in the 2005 redevelopment plan. So in looking at the site with fresh eyes with Garden Homes, we decided it made sense to study this full frontage of Raritan Avenue and as well as some of these additional lots here to see if they qualified as areas in need of redevelopment under the statute. That work was done. Our planning team worked on that for us. The planning board reviewed it and ultimately agreed and recommended that the lots be declared areas in need of redevelopment. This allows us to also wrap all the properties in together as we start to negotiate the finer points of the project. So what's going to happen? We're going to have to amend the plan. Right now, the redevelopment plan, the 2021 plan anyway, really only includes these properties, the ones the borough owned. That was another major focus of the 2021 effort. When we went looking fresh at redevelopment, we focused on areas where either we owned property or where we knew we had a willing partner or an interested developer, okay? So what we are going to have to do is amend the 2021 plan to include this whole area. That is not, now just to be clear, what the pictures show and what you'll see later doesn't include all of these properties, but they were studied on the event that they might help provide access or make sense to include potentially even as a second phase down the line. The other thing I wanted to mention here was, so while we're looking at these additional lots, we're also going to have to consider changes to the plan to accommodate what we think is the most optimal development plan for Tract C. So that might look, we'll be looking at setbacks and other kind of bulk standards with fresh eyes. As of now, we don't see any major amendments necessary, but if we're going to open this up to amendments, we're going to try to make sure we have a conforming project to our best ability. So that's something Councilman Hale mentioned, that we will be having more meetings to amend a redevelopment plan. There's an introductory hearing, as well as there's 2 meetings of the council and public hearing prior to vote. So there's going to be all these little bites at being able to contribute your thoughts as we go along. Let's see, what's my next slide? So now I'm going to move to South 3rd Avenue. I know this is a matter that a lot of you care a lot about. I live here too, so I understand. What is this? This is a hodgepodge of photos I put together to kind of remind us of the town tables, we called them at the time, which were a pretty clever and quick way to help us address a really important need during the pandemic. We had no gathering spaces that we could come to, or we had very few. So this became an important amenity. We saw marriages happen, or at least proposals. I hope they got married. We had people, enjoying the space throughout the. I believe I meant to look at the exact dates, but they were up for a year, just about, before we were required to remove them. So, at the same time, we had just kind of come through the planning process for the 2021 plan, and in that plan, we had contemplated a public space on the right-of-way. Initially, we had started looking at North 3rd, but during the communications and discussions with the community, there was some pushback and some really good feedback on North 3rd, and we still liked the idea. And then we did a little pilot during the pandemic, and so the plan actually says to explore the plaza, and so that's what we've been doing. And I will jump, I think, to my next slide to say, so how do we make something like that permanent? And I learned a lot about rules and regulations. When you're a municipality with a state highway as your main street, you have to deal with the NJDOT. And they required us, because I don't know if I have a good picture of it. Yeah, I do. So right here, this is theirs, okay? That intersection is theirs. And anything that comes up to it is something they care about for safety reasons, all these good reasons. So we had to apply for a street intersection permit, which I am pleased to say, if you haven't heard through the grapevine, we got within the last few weeks. We have our permit, and DOT, it's conditioned. We have to meet all the conditions of the permit, but we can move forward. So this is a major milestone for us. Thank you. So now the work really begins in many ways. because we have to now, it's always been our plan, we need to, we don't want to just put bollards up and stop. We want it to look and feel like a top quality space. I put some images of public squares that are in right-of-ways in other towns that I like, that I've gotten familiar with over time. Montclair, Jersey City, Somerville. These are all examples of municipal right-of-ways that have been made into pedestrian spaces. So we need a design team to help us make sure it works, and we're going to be doing an RFP for just that very soon. That team that we hire is going to help us facilitate important community discussions. We need to make sure we address the concerns of the immediate neighbors. We got to work with Main Street because we're going to need their help in making sure the space is a success. We're going to need to talk to the community at large. So this team is not only going to help us draw the pictures, but also navigate the community conversations to figure out the best way to put a plaza forward. They're going to draft a design plan. We'll have some renderings, probably like versions of what you see here tonight. And importantly, a phasing plan, because we've got a lot of moving parts between the development of Tract C, the farmers market, all these things. We're going to need to have a plan of attack to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. And importantly, we're going to have to find the money. And I know the mayor's hard at work on that front. And we're going to have to do the traffic intersection improvements. One of the things I think there's not a common understanding about is this permit, we're going to be changing the traffic lights, and that's on the municipality to do. DOT will not do that. So we'll be removing the light, on South 3rd so that it's not going to say green light, red light anymore. It's just going to say you can go left or you can go right from North 3rd. There's improvements we have to make just to the signals and the pedestrian crossings as part of this. Even if we did nothing else, we still have to do that. And then we have to build it once we know exactly what we want to do. So that's one major component to South 3rd. Our plaza, town square, we're going to have to settle on a name for it at some point. The other thing, and there's some displays in the back, and I heard folks talking about it, is our municipal parking lot on South 3rd. We started looking at the parking lot with fresh eyes with the help of our parking consultant that we engaged to do a traffic study, not a traffic study, a parking study to complement the 2021 plan. What he started to kind of put on our radar was, well, while Tract C is being redeveloped, that's a lot of your public parking, you should be looking at South 3rd, your municipal parking lot, with fresh eyes. As it happened, just through luck, I guess, the property owner of the house here, next to our parking lot, looked to sell his home, and so we took that opportunity, the borough, with the support of the governing body, we purchased the house so that one of the likely proposed uses that we thought would be to expand the municipal parking lot. One of the concept sketches that I'm showing you here shows a layout. We've looked at other ones. This is not the final one, but I wanted to show you we can pick up an additional 27 public parking spaces. So especially while we're under construction and during peak times on Tract C, we'll have additional parking to rely on, because I know that's a concern for a lot of folks, especially those of you that live and work and around the project area. So that's an important South 3rd thing. And then probably the biggest thing that everybody is worried about is our beloved farmers market. And I know Rebecca's here somewhere. I think I've seen all of you at the market at one point or another. And so how does this all work and we still have a farmers market? And we know that's really important. So with the help of our planner, Chris Casenza, we put together a slide to kind of show how public space is going to increase through both the Tract C project that Garden Homes will be presenting, but also through our work on South 3rd. So right here, this is just a snapshot, and I know it might be kind of hard to read from the back, so I'll read it out. This is what I'm calling this is like our current condition. And the part that's kind of an upside down L, it says current public space, and that we get ballparked at about 5,500 square feet. And that's essentially the Welkovitz Pavilion and the kind of gravelly area along the side of the Main Street building. And so what I'd say is that's generally available as public space any day you want to go by, you can sit under the pavilion, and there's oftentimes taco trucks and book trucks and things like that in that space. And then on market days, we have about 13,000 square feet of the parking lot that's used for the farmer's market. So just to give you some idea of the space. So moving to South Third, now that you know, we're thinking about a public plaza, where that public plaza, if you just go from the curb to the curb, is about 4,500 square feet. Okay, so it's a little less than the pavilion area, but that's, you know, fairly comparable to the current public space that's available 365 days. But then when you look at a possibility of an expanded farmers market area on our expanded municipal parking lot, you've got about 15,000 square feet of parking lot. So when you compare that to about the 13,000 square feet, net, we're yielding a little more space. Recognize there's a lot to be figured out about configuration, and I'm going to be working really hard with Main Street and the team to figure out the best way we can utilize this space. But I just want to make that comparison that we will have space for a farmer's market using the new plaza as well as our expanded parking lot. And then lastly, on this slide, I just point out that if you don't just go within the curves and you design like the other examples I showed you before, from building to building, you pick up an extra 1,000 square feet of space, more usable space. If you can eliminate curbs, they kind of do a rolled curb, there's different ways you can do it. You can get a lot more functional programming space in there. So we were encouraged that, okay, we can do this. We can continue, we can have our cake and eat it too, so to speak. And then the last thing, and I apologize to the Garden Homes team with a little spoiler alert, but since you guys see in the back anyway, the last thing I'll mention is their proposal, very excited, also includes public community space. About 3,500 square feet of covered outdoor space right along Raritan, as well as an indoor space, about 4,500 square feet. TBD, let me just put that out there. We haven't figured out the programming, we haven't figured out a lot of the detail, but now we have something to really focus on. How can we bring all of these pieces together so that we get a really, really strong product at the end of the day, where we are going to net much more community space than we started with. We're going to have much more upgraded community space with modern amenities like electricity and storage areas and all of that stuff to make all of our programs run that much better. I think this is where my slides end, if memory serves, yes. So before I hand over the mic to Brett and Avellino, I want to just remind you, I know this was a lot and you're going to see more. All these boards will be up, you'll get a chance to look, and we're going to also mingle and talk and try to answer questions as much as we can during the time before we have to reconvene for a brief public comment period. But with that, I'd like to hand over the baton. There you are. And this is Brett Tansman. He's our main point of contact with Garden Homes.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Hale, other members of the council, members of the public. I think the fact that we have so many people here, I saw an 8-month-old before. I think, Terry, she got bored by your presentation, so left. But to many of you here, I think is a testament to this borough that you all care. And I hope after our presentation tonight, you'll see how much we care about this borough and about this redevelopment. But I'm Brett Tansman. I'm a principal with Garden Homes. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. I'm a principal with Garden Homes. Our headquarters is in Essex County, but we're throughout New Jersey, the region, and the country. And we are unique in that we are involved from acquisition all the way through design, construction, and stabilization of a property, and we manage our own properties. So we're in it for the long haul, and it's just not simply build and leave a town. So it's in our interest to see a product really thrive and flourish, and we want to build a product that we could be just as proud of as you when it's complete. and we build for the generations to come. And me personally, I've been involved in, my family has been in Highland Park for 6 generations, this is a place that's near and dear to me personally. My parents actually met in this high school, and my mom grew up a few blocks away from here on North 7th, my dad on the south side, and many cousins in between. So this is a town that we're really, we care deeply about. And as Terry alluded to, more recently, we developed the Frederick, and I welcome any of you to come and visit it. But we're really proud of that project, and we worked, I thought, really well with the town and the neighborhood. And similar to that project, this redevelopment will take a lot of real true partnership with the borough, with the community, to build something that everybody can be proud of. And so we've spent, and I think you'll see as Avellino comes up next, we've spent an enormous amount of time and energy and resources on developing a proposal that we're proud of, and we hope you see that time and effort that we put into it. And with that, I want to introduce Abelino Martinez, who is our architect from Blackbird Consultants Group.
Good evening, everyone. As Brett mentioned, my name is Avelino Martinez. I am with the firm of Blackbird Group Architects. I'm excited to be here tonight and working with Garden Homes. Our firm specializes primarily in the design of mixed-use developments similar to this one. We've been working with Garden Homes for close to 20 years now, and had the opportunity of working on the Frederick with Brett recently, which was recently completed on River Road and Walter Avenue. So what I'd like to do is give you a brief overview of the project, and then I'd love to hear your feedback. In all of this, it's important to remember that the images that we have here tonight are really sketches, and there's some renderings that are a little bit more developed, but in as much as we put a lot of work into getting here and we know this is a viable project, there's still many steps to go, and there's a lot of design work still left to mature the project. So to give you an overview of the site location, for those who may not be familiar with it, the site is located, as Terry mentioned, Tract C of the redevelopment plan, and that's fronting on Raritan Avenue and between South 2nd and South 3rd. The site extends all the way back to Magnolia Street through the parking lot and current home of the farmers market. More specifically, it consists of a total of 13 lots. That's beginning here on the west side on South 2nd Street and continues all the way to the corner along Raritan Avenue and then up to Lot 9. So in designing the project, and you'll see the images if you've had the opportunity to see them in the rear, what we tried to do is break up the project into a number of different components. So never to have one contiguous building, one large project, really to break it up into different elements. So the sketch you see here is a view as if we were standing on the intersection of South 2nd and Raritan Avenue. So if our back was towards New Brunswick, let's say, and this would be South 2nd Street, you can see the church in the foreground, and this would be the Sunoco station on the right side. So the first component of the project is it borrows architecture from a Tudor style. So that gives us the opportunity to use a combination of steep pitched roofs that relate more towards the residential neighborhoods and scale the building down. The plan for this intersection is to have a restaurant. This would be a 2-story restaurant with outdoor dining and a primary focal tower on the corner. So really trying to activate this street corner. You'll see that further in the slides, but the plan is this is approximately a 7,000 square foot, two-story restaurant, and then residential units above. As we move down the street, the section highlighted in blue would be an architecture that borrows from brownstone and row house architecture. So that gives us the opportunity to get many unique individual components in that facade, each having their own identity, unique entry conditions, and really engaging more at the pedestrian level at a human scale. This would be a view, just a sketch view, as if you were walking down the street on Raritan Avenue. You can see there's individual porch stoops and raised planters, lower planters, and really starting to break up that facade. We would also use a number of different materials to break up that, that continuous facade as well. As we move further down, we have this orange element here, which is really a traditional three-part building style. It's very common in Main Street America. There's many great examples of these, and typically that would be a masonry facade with an activated ground level. In this case, it would be amenity spaces within the building, and then step back as it goes up. So that would give us a clearly defined a base, middle, and a top of the building. Between those two, between the orange section we just saw and the blue section of the row houses, there's a what we refer to as a cut-through component. And this is a direct connection between Raritan Avenue and the parking at the rear, connecting back to Magnolia Street. So we'll see this further in the plans, but in essence, it allows pedestrians to come through the building and then up to the upper level parking at the rear. It's also a great opportunity for artwork. There's this area here with a temporary mural indicating Highland Park, but it would be a great opportunity to have some sculptures and community artwork. So the last section there is this highlighted pink portion, and that is, again, a very similar architectural style in the sense that it's a very classical, traditional style, but the ground floor of that is a public open plaza. So it's a covered plaza on the ground floor. It's not quite a two-story, but it's a story and a half space, which is a direct extension of the sidewalk. Directly behind that would also be an indoor public space, which is yet to be programmed, and we'd love to hear some feedback tonight in terms of how we can program that. So this would be a view of that two-story space as if you were standing on the sidewalk with Raritan Avenue along the left and the building above. This area here, still to be designed, would be that indoor public space of approximately 4,500 square feet. So putting them all together, we get a project that uses a number of different architectures to comprise the overall. So what we tried to do is put together some images to give you a sense of a before and after of how it is today and how we expect it may be tomorrow. So this would be the view, as we're all familiar with, from Raritan Avenue and South 2nd. And this would be what this could look like tomorrow. So as you saw in the sketches, the idea here is using an architecture that blends a combination of colors and materials and really starts to use pitched roofs and an architecture that relates more to the residential neighborhood to the rear. Further along Raritan Avenue, we have the row house architecture that begins to change and utilize different materials. So a view from Raritan Avenue slightly further up the road, again, our back still towards New Brunswick. This would be from the bus stop area, and this would be a view of what that could look like tomorrow. So again, we have the combination of row houses, each having a unique identity, a combination of colors and materials. They do have individual steps, or they're proposed to have individual stoops, which would take you to the primary entrances, but there's an elevated walkway, which we'll see in the plan in a moment, which would offer residents handicap accessibility to each of the entrances as well. So the last before and after we have would be from South 3rd or I guess North 3rd and Raritan. And that would be a view as it exists today. And then a view showing what the building could look like beyond. So again, a combination of colors and materials, all yet to be further refined into a mature design. So just by way of floor plan, the site and the important thing to understand here is that there's a significant grade change between the intersection of South 2nd and the driveway entrance along Magnolia. So what that affords us is the opportunity to take a great deal of that parking and bury it underground. So this would actually be the lower level parking garage, which would be accessed from South 2nd Street. And the plan is that there would be 15 public parking spaces along the rear and 115 residential parking spaces. On the corner, we have that restaurant component that we saw, which had the Tudor sort of architecture. The blue area would be those duplex dwelling units with the row house architecture. And then this would be that cut-through element that we mentioned. Slightly beyond there would be our residential lobby and amenities, and then the covered plaza, which is the community public space. So again, that's 3,500 square feet of covered space, 4,500 square feet of indoor public space. So that connection would bring someone along this area through a landscape element and a connection point up to the upper level parking area, which would be at the existing grade condition of the parking lot today. So this level would have 97 residential parking spaces and then 28 public parking spaces. So in total, we're talking about 43 public parking spaces. So that connection would also, we haven't quite developed it, but there would be a handicap accessible route communicating anyone from the upper level parking back down and to Raritan Avenue on the north. And again, just going through the floor plan, this would be that the restaurant on the corner, this would be the second story of those duplex units, and then the amenity spaces and dwelling units around the rear of the building. Upper levels of the building would be very similar to this. This is a typical floor plan, but the idea is that would be a double-loaded corridor type building with a amenity deck for resident access on the upper level. So in general, we're looking at approximately 130 to 140 dwelling units, and 15% of them being affordable. So then just a few additional sketches. This would be just a quick massing model to show the building on the corner. This would be a view from South 2nd Avenue, Raritan Avenue being in the distance. And you can see here that corner tower element and the building wrapping around and the existing church here. And then just an image of standing in the parking area with your back towards Magnolia Street, looking towards the project. So that's a general overview of the project. And with that, we'd love to hear any comments and any suggestions that you may have and how we can use those public spaces. So with that, I'll hand it over to Terry.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Avelino. That was a really great overview. So as we mentioned, the next phase of tonight, and I'm just going to go to my housekeeping because I don't want, I have you captive here. We are going to break we have a loosely structured information stations in the back. I'll just explain kind of how they're broken out. In the kind of center area is what we're calling our concept plan station. The team from Garden Homes, as well as Councilman Pastelnik will be there to kind of hear your thoughts and questions about the building and how it's going to work. You can get up close and look at the drawings, tell us what you think. We have one for public spaces. Our planning team, Jim and Chris, are at that station. It's kind of more towards the front or rear, depending on which way you look at it. at that station, it's an opportunity to think about all the stuff about South Third, all the stuff within the interior and exterior of the Tract C building. So just want to hear your thoughts on that. Of course, we're not that rigid. If you want to talk about that at the other table, that's also okay too. And I believe we've got Matt Hale will be at that station, at least for the time being. And then last but not least, if you want to talk about parking or legal stuff, you can come talk to me and Joe, kind of on the left-hand side. And Stephanie Kim Chohan will be there as well to listen and get your comments. Otherwise, we have other council members here. They're going to float around. The mayor's going to float around. We all really want to hear what you have to say. We're going to take notes to our best ability because we really want to gather. But we also encourage you to fill out one of our questions comment sheets, because if A, you're shy and you prefer to write it down, that's fine. There's a little box on the way out. Please leave your comments, questions, thoughts for us so that we can really sift through that with more thoughtfulness afterwards. So just, if you didn't see those, they are sprinkled around. And we also have some of these round tables, but we ended up needing those for seats for the presentation. But the idea was, if you want to gather around those, there were some printouts on them. I see people have grabbed them. They were meant to kind of be shared. So if you want to bring those back and kind of share them with your neighbors so that they can look at them together in case it gets a little crowded by the board. So that's how the kind of info station part worked. I did forget an important point, which was where the restrooms were, which I had to look a little bit, go out that way and make a right. I went left and I got lost. So if that is a great time for a bio break if you need it. We'll be reconvening around 8:45 for kind of a brief public comment. I mentioned the comment cards, and then the meeting materials. I saw people taking pictures, which is great, but we will be posting the slide deck on our website afterward. The presentation's being filmed, and will be posted on our YouTube channel and broadcast on the cable access channel. We're going to do our best to figure out the best format in which to kind of summarize some of the key themes we heard tonight in our casual conversations, in the public comment period, as well as in your note cards that you leave behind. So with that, I think there's my email, thover@hpborough.com. That's also a good way to get me a comment or question. And if you've emailed with me, I do my best to get back to you. So with that, Mayor? Oh, thank you, Mayor. There was a sign-in sheet, but a lot of people came in through different ways, so it can also be a sign-out sheet. So we just ask if you don't mind just letting us know you came, and contact information if you don't mind sharing it, not mandatory, but just would like to know who came out tonight, because it is so great to see all these folks. With that, we break out, info stations, have fun. I'm going to go run to parking and legal.
Have anything that they would like to. This is going to be a session where we're just going to take notes. So we're only taking notes this session. So if you have a comment, please come up and give your comment. We will not be answering any questions. It's just to hear your comments. And unfortunately, we only have one microphone, and this microphone is being used to record this so it can be on our YouTube channel. So if you have questions, you're either going to speak very, very loudly, or you're going to have to come up here. Thank you. So anyone have a question, you just make a line right here. Comments, I'm sorry. Any comments? Or raise your hand. All right, we have the first person who want to make a comment.
Hello. Hi. So first of all, thank you so much for putting this presentation together. Thank you for working on this. I'm definitely leaving with more confidence than I came in with, so that's certainly appreciated. I have a concern about something that hasn't been talked about and doesn't seem to be part of the presentations that have been set up, which is the cost of rent for the units that are part of the building. I know that this developer is a luxury apartment builder, and so the average rents for the New Jersey spaces are about $27,000 to $5,000 for 1 to 3 bedroom units. That's well above market range even for Highland Park, which is already unaffordable for most of us who are renters. I've been here for 5 years as a renter. It doesn't look like I'll be able to buy anytime soon, but I do hope to stay here. So that's definitely a major concern that I have. I'm also concerned that I haven't heard it discussed at all. Of course, it's very important that there's opportunity for affordable housing that's built in. I'm not specifically talking about affordable housing. I'm talking about median housing, what's affordable for your average income in New Jersey. That's all, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexis Thomason. I live over in the Triangle. Thanks for putting this together. I think the project looks really beautiful, but I have a similar concern. My husband and I, we own, and when we get a little older than we are now, we'd like to be able to downsize to an apartment in the center of town if possible. We'd like to stay in Highland Park. And this is going to be lease only, and I was really hoping they would have condos. So that's my concern, that, you know, we're not going to want to be renters when we get older. We'd like to stay in town and be able to buy something. So I really hope that they consider having some condos and not just rentals, and definitely not just high-end rentals. I don't think 15%, I know that's the minimum, but I don't think 15% affordable is enough. I think we should exceed that. We are a town that would like to exceed that. Am I right? Yes. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Triangle resident, Randy Sumner. I am really excited by much of what I have seen this evening. I've been really looking forward to this session for a long time, so thank you for being so in-depth on the session. I just have a couple of things that I'd like to see what the plan is. I'd like to know about solar paneling, solar in the parking lot. I'd also like to know about power stations for electric vehicles in the parking. I'd like to understand if there's the plan for some of the modern electronics that we see in the New Brunswick and other regional parking lots, which let us know how many spaces are available and things like that, especially for the underground space. I'd also like to understand the plan for storm drainage, since that is becoming a big issue and will continue to be in our town. And I think that's my laundry list. So thank you very much. I am super excited, and I too hope to be able to retire and downsize and stay in town at some point.
Hi, everybody. Dan Stern Cardinal, Harper Street. Just a few very brief comments. I think, my main concern with when we look at redevelopment plans like this is the fact that in Highland Park, in Middlesex County, in New Jersey, and even regionally in the Northeast, we have a giant housing affordability crisis and a big housing shortage. And there's decades and decades of research on how to address that. And the way to address that is to build more housing where people want to live. And we are really fortunate that Highland Park is a place where people want to live. That means there's high demand to live here, which is going to make it unaffordable for a lot of people unless we do something like this, we build more housing. So I'm really optimistic about this plan because I think this is a step in the right direction in terms of addressing the big barrier for people living in Highland Park, which is housing affordability. Thank you.
Regina, I'm 24 Red Cliff Avenue. I've made a lot of comments to people in the background. I'm not going to repeat them. I continue to have those concerns. But as far as imperviousness of the new buildings, because currently we have a lot of little lawns there, and so I was wondering if it were possible to do blue-green roofs that would actually absorb water as well and allow it for reuse. I would greatly appreciate that.
I'm sort of want to address the public land question of this whole development project. I found it underwhelming, but specifically there's the public land question of our public transportation. There is a bus stop along the development, which might just not be addressed by this, but probably should be. It would be nice to see that made more accessible. But additionally, the plan kind of alongside this for South Third. It looks beautiful, but of course it would take a long time. And in that time, what would happen to our public spaces? Would we not have any? Because that would be a problem for a lot of people, even just for a season or a year.
Hi, my name is Flavio Camuves. I live at 304 Lincoln Avenue. The architecture, I have to say, looks pretty nice. The problem with this is they're calling it mixed use. It's not mixed use. It's a housing development with a token restaurant and a token 2,500 feet of office space. And in a town where there is such a excess ratio of housing to commercial, several times higher than neighboring towns, several times higher than the county. This has to have a substantial amount of additional commercial uses, not residential. That's all.
My name is Jessica Henston, and I just want to echo some of the concerns that have been made about affordable housing. Specifically, I was thinking about some of the conversations we've had in the past about the Frederick, and that a 2-bedroom at the Frederick is $4,000 a month. And so this architect is the same architect and working with Garden Homes again. And so I think that just echoes kind of some of the concerns that have been made about, is this truly affordable? And I think the other piece of it is that my understanding is that new builds that are apartments for 30 years do not have to abide by the rent control ordinance. So I think that's another piece that we need to be thinking about. And I know there has been some requests by members of the community to address both of those together. And then finally, I would just say, I think the storm drainage piece is a really big deal. And also, I know there have been some concerns in the past regarding the developer and specifically storm drainage violations. And so I think that's something that I know the Sustainable Highland Park was going to make sure. I think they were in the process of developing some guidelines. And so I hope those have been developed and that those are being taken into consideration in this development. I do really appreciate the opportunity to hear from the developers and our borough, and thank you for hosting this.
Hi, Rob Rosener, Harrison Avenue. I just want to echo the last speaker exactly. She stole my thunder somewhat. But as a small landlord owner or in town with a 2-family, we have 3-bedroom apartments that are renting for half the price, and we're subject to rent control. And this will be much smaller apartments renting for twice as much money. Yes, it's new construction, but we do, my little thing offers a second option for people to live in town, and I think it's just unfair. So I think the borough actually should reconsider the rent control. It has nothing to do with the project. I think it's a great project. I think it's beautiful, but I do think if we're subject to rent control, they should be as well, because they're charging twice as much for a much smaller space. So that's mostly to the borough.
Good evening, everybody. Joe Stanio, 208 North 3rd Avenue. A couple concerns I have. So just to give you a little quick background, moved to Metuchen about 25 years ago. Metuchen was in a similar position to where Highland Park is right now. And if you've been to Metuchen, you can kind of see what their revitalization is taking place. My recommendation to a few people tonight when I had conversations is I think it would be wise of us to utilize maybe some of the information, some feedback from the do's and don'ts of what Metuchen has done, as far as if they had to do all over again, maybe some changes that they would make regarding, I know parking being a big issue, one of them, where they severely underestimated the parking spaces in conjunction with the amount of units they put in. So it's something to really consider. That's one aspect, and the second important aspect is being active in a lot of the schools here in town that are already kind of overflowing, and we have a few trailers over at Irving. We're already seeing that we don't have enough infrastructure school-wise in order to accommodate our children. So that's another deep thought we want to think about, is making sure that we have a school system that's big enough to carry the weight of the extra people that are moving into town, the extra families. So those are the two key points that concern me, the parking and the infrastructure within the school system. So I want to keep an eye on that as we move forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Stevens. I'm at Wayne Street. I want to echo, first of all, the rent stuff. I agree. Build more housing. It should be affordable for the people who already live here, because we do need more housing. The other thing I want to note is public spaces are not fungible. If you have, X amount of square footage of public space, if that is broken up into small areas, that means that it is not as utilitarian as one large area, which we have now. And the large area for the proposed expand farmers market, first of all, is not concrete, nor does it have the same flexibility of space as we already have, nor any commitment to a similarly flexible space. And finally, I'm concerned about the effect not on parking, but on traffic. How are the lights going to be retuned for the increase in traffic coming in on 2nd, for the, lack of traffic lights on 3rd, for the increased traffic on Magnolia? I'm confused and would love to know more about how the traffic patterns are going to be reflected in retuning the lights and maintaining the streets.
Seth Copperdale, pastor with my wife of the church that's right around this thing. So a lot of people ask our opinion of it. First of all, I think everybody's comments tonight have been wonderful. I think the presentation is wonderful. And some of the concerns raised are concerns that I would have as well. But I want to just speak in favor of this, this concept. I mean, we live right there. We would love to see something that makes this block really stand out. And be part of a renewed and rejuvenated Highland Park. So I would say that we've met with the leadership of the church, with the committee a bit, to just make sure that we weren't completely overwhelmed by this, and we don't feel we are, and I can speak for myself, but the sentiment generally of the group that met was very positive. We have responsible questions to ask, but I just wanted to voice to the town that we will be the most impacted. We have 3,500 people a week in that building. 7 days a week for an incredible number of programs, and we're in favor of it, or at least I'm in favor of it.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Cradaville. I'm the editor of New Brunswick Today, a community newspaper available online at newbrunswicktoday.com. And I'm here as a New Brunswick resident to say, first of all, that I am thrilled to see so many people come out here. I wish that every time they built a big building in New Brunswick, there was this much community engagement and interest in genuine questions and dialogue. And it's been interesting to follow from the other side of the Raritan. I did want to put forth a question about the potential for a long-term tax exemption. A lot of people refer to these as a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. I feel like those can be problematic, and I think that one of the worst parts of those kind of agreements is they take all the money that does come in and give 95% of it to the municipality, 5% to the county, and cut the schools out of the picture, unless the borough's feeling generous and forward-thinking and works in the schools to that, to have a piece of that pie. In general, I think developers should be paying their full share of taxes, but I would be curious to hear what discussions have happened related to the potential for a long-term tax exemption, if that's something that's already been promised, and if so, what are the terms? Because I think it'd be really important to have dialogue about what those terms are going to be, because those agreements typically last for 30 years, and it's hard to see what the borough's going to look like in 30 years, or what the real estate market's going to look like in 30 years. But those agreements get worked out, at the beginning of it. So it'd be important to get that right and make sure that the schools don't have additional burdens without funding to meet those burdens. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Wow, it's 9 o'clock, right on the nose. I want to thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your comments. We will be following up back with you shortly. Give us some time to process and digest all this information and on all the comments that we've had. Please, if you haven't done so, put your comments in the comment box and we'll be processing and getting back to you at some point in the not too distant future. Thank you all again for coming out and good night.